Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. So this week I am continuing my Fill the World project where I create houses that fit on each of the empty lots in all of the worlds from EA. So this week I am working on an empty lot in Brindleton Bay. This house is built for the lot called Sporting Space, I think is what it's called. So this house I decided to call Country Charmer because it's kind of like a cute little country farmhouse. Not super country-ish, but, you know, probably more country in style. It's kind of an interesting neighborhood because there's like a very kind of modern-looking vet clinic, but then the two pre-built houses are more of like a traditional, what I would say like more of a country style house. I mean, technically they're like Dutch colonials, but so I wasn't really sure which way to go with this, but personally I prefer doing more traditional styled builds than modern builds, so I went with the traditional styled house. So I also really wanted to do a house with a detached garage, even though we don't actually have cars in The Sims 4. I thought that would just be kind of a fun feature. You know, like a lot of times you have an older house and the rooms or the buildings have been repurposed without, you know, being torn down or anything. So I thought it would be kind of a fun idea to do a little like garage or shed out in the back that might have been, you know, used for someone to stay in. So in this specific house, I decided to make that for like a teenager or a young adult who's like, you know, still living with their parents or whatever, but needs a little bit of their own space. So there's like a larger bedroom, and then also the largest bathroom of the house is actually back there as well. But, you know, I sort of figured they had the space to work with as opposed to having like a very small, cramped little bathroom. You know, and obviously, like, they would have had to have done some remodeling to the inside of it in order to put a bathroom in a garage, so why not go all out? So the other thing that I did a little different in this video is I didn't cut very much out. So normally, if I'm recording for a speed build, I'll cut out things like doing the floor plan part, or like, if I make mistakes, I'll cut them out, because like, who wants to watch me make mistakes over and over and over again? That's no fun. But I decided to leave at least a lot of that stuff in this time around. Mostly because, so I decided to leave the floor plan stuff in because I realized that when I was editing this video, I forgot to take overhead screenshots of the floor plan. So I figured that would be probably helpful for you guys since I didn't take screenshots. So you could kind of see what the floor plan looks like just from watching the video itself, and that way then you don't even have to wait until the screenshots at the end, so yay. And just in general, I just thought it would be more interesting to leave in some of my like mistakes, or not necessarily mistakes, but like the changes that I made. You know, like I briefly toyed around with putting in a roof trim, but then it wasn't working well with the way that I had the roof set up, and you know, just to kind of see a little bit more of the evolution of the build, I guess you could say. So yeah, the other thing I still didn't film the bathrooms or the landscaping outside because I spent a really long time on this house. Not the actual recording part, but then like once I stopped recording, I spent a really long time. Like, it's interesting because like I know in my brain when I'm recording for a video, like, okay, I'm recording now, and I'm very aware of that fact, so I try to like hustle my way through building, and I don't, you know, hem and haw quite so much. But then once the camera is off and I'm doing things like the landscaping and the bathrooms that I basically never film, then it actually does slow down my building now. So I don't know why. I was taking my sweet time with doing the bathrooms and the landscaping, and then like I didn't film the lighting, which I never filmed the lighting, but like I don't know, I somehow wound up spending like almost 5 hours on this build, and I actually only recorded for 2 hours, so gotta work on that. So maybe in the future I'll continue to film longer and then just decide later to cut it out. But it is interesting, like my mindset really does change now from when I'm building on camera versus when I'm building just off camera or just for fun, for not even for a video. Like, maybe I'll just start recording everything that I build just to make sure that I'm still building at a somewhat appropriate pace. I mean, to be fair, I was also pretty distracted while I was doing this because I was rewatching Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which, if you don't know, it was a TV show on, like, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was obsessed. It was like, for me, Sabrina was like the first, like, quote-unquote grown-up show that I was allowed to watch. Like, I was allowed to watch Full House, but you know, it's like a family show. Not that Sabrina isn't a family show, it's definitely family friendly, but, like, you know, it's about a teenage girl and she's like going to high school and stuff, whereas like Full House, there was always like a plot line with the older girls, but there was also stuff about like the parents or the younger girls. And so, but this is just, it's all older people, so it sort of always felt like more of like a grown-up type of show to me. And when it came out, I was 4th or 5th grade, I want to say. So, and that was like a big deal too, because I got to stay up late. It was on at, I think, 8:30. So I got to stay up late to watch it. Yeah, so I had like, not like strict parents, but like, I definitely had like a bedtime, and because I'm the oldest too, I always had to be careful, like, with what I watched around my younger brother and sister, because, you know, they are not as old as me, and so, like, things that would be okay for me to watch wouldn't necessarily be okay for them to watch. But this was one of those things where, like, my brother and sister would go to bed, and I got to stay up, and I got to watch Sabrina. So, it's always been, like, a very special thing for me. But anyways, so the whole series is available on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it. And actually, Netflix is doing a remaster/reboot of Sabrina, but it's like a dark comedy. I don't even know if it's going to be a comedy at all. I watched the trailer for it that came out a few days ago, and I was like, ooh, this is creepy. Like, if this was on when I was in 4th or 5th grade, I don't think I would have wanted to watch this, because it is very, it's not very dark, but like thematically it's very different. So I'm still gonna watch it, I think, because I like the premise of Sabrina. I've always been really into like witches. I don't know, like, I liked watching Bewitched a lot as a kid when I was younger too, so I don't really know why, because I'm not like a huge supernatural fan in general. Like, I absolutely despise vampires, but that's more about like a consent issue than anything else. Whereas witches, I don't know. I feel like witches get a little bit more leeway with what they're doing. Like, you don't always think of like witches going against other people's wills. Whereas with vampires, that's like basically all that they do. So, but anyways, so I was watching Sabrina while I was doing this, and it definitely distracted me a lot. But, that's okay. It is kind of funny, though, because now I'll go back and, like, I'll play in, like, an older build that I've done, or I'll have, like, one of my own videos recommended to me on YouTube or something. And I'm like, oh, right, I was watching this show when I was doing this, or I was watching this movie when I was doing it. Like, I always have something on in the background, and now I tend to associate whatever it was that I was watching while I was doing that build. So, I don't know why. That's just, it's always been like, I always make like strange connections like that in my head. Like, oh yeah, this reminds me of this. Or like smells in particular. I've always had this thing where a specific smell really will like trigger a memory for me specifically. Like, for example, the smell of warm vanilla sugar from Bath & Body Works reminds me of my freshman in high school marching band trip to Walt Disney World, because I had just gotten that lotion as a Christmas present. And so now whenever I smell warm vanilla sugar, I feel like a 14-year-old at Disney World on a marching band trip. Don't know why. I mean, like, I do know why, but I don't know why I still have that association, like, 16 years ago. That was 17 years ago. Why do I still have that in my head 17 years later? My God. So anyways, That's just a fun little fact about me. So obviously we are now doing the inside of the house. I wanted to, because it's a family style house, I wanted to kind of do like an open kitchen living room area where there's not a whole lot of division. I had a separate dining room because I sort of thought that way then if say you have people over for dinner, you could kind of put them in a quieter part of the house, and then maybe the kids are playing out in the living room or upstairs or outside or something, and it's a nice break from the what I would assume to be a potentially chaotic part of the rest of the house. Also, I've noticed that because I'm doing a lot of house builds again, and for a while because I was just doing community lots, I definitely have my favorite objects that I always gravitate towards. Like, for one thing, I mean, like, the Parenthood kitchen cabinets, I use those all the time. The round and circular, or not round and circular, the round and oval shaped and the half oval shaped rugs from Cats and Dogs pack that kind of look like they're made out of that, like, knotted type of material. The one that I have in the living room of this house, I use those rugs a lot, especially in my more traditional style builds. I have like my favorite objects. So I did try to use, like, I don't tend to use the jukebox as much, but I decided to use that in this build. Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear when The Sims 4 first came out, like 4+ years ago, I thought for some reason that the jukebox had like a slightly different song selection feature on it, where like instead of like functioning like a normal radio where you just say what genre of music you want to listen to, I thought for some reason it had like a really limited selection of genres, but you could actually choose the individual tracks. And I might be making that up, but for some reason that's always stuck out in my head, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think at some point that was changed. I always put a broom in the kitchen too. I don't know why I do that. I did realize too, when I was going back and doing the screenshots, I left a spot for the vent hood above the stove, but I never actually put the vent hood in. So, I mean, like, the spot's right there, so if you wanted to stick one in, feel free. But I forgot. I always forget something. It's either the trash can, or the mailbox, or the vent hood. It's never anything big. Like, I never forget to do a big thing. But, yeah. Also, this dining room is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. At some point, the chair on the end of the table near the hutch just completely disappears. I don't even know when it happens, but it just vanishes because I guess it's too close to the hutch to be able to be used. And since I had move objects turned on when I was placing these objects, it let me place it, but then it didn't let me keep it. So, also, I find it really annoying that most objects don't snap into those spots on the hutch, because I had to use the move object sheet on several things there. And like all of the like dining room style hutches like that seem to be that way. And it's so frustrating. We need more smaller decor objects. Like, not even necessarily clutter, but we need like more objects that just have a smaller footprint. Because like there are some objects that like I would think would fit quite well, but they just don't. For whatever reason. Like, you look at it and you're like, why does this thing have such a large footprint? It should fit here. It's like a small little lamp or something. But yeah, so that would be on my short list of things that I would like. But yeah, yesterday on Twitter, SimGuru Grant was, I guess, flying to Los Angeles. So he did like this really long like Twitter Q&A thing. So if you're not on Twitter, I recommend checking that out and reading through his tweets and responses, because there are definitely some very enlightening things that he has said in those tweets. Like that his favorite worlds in The Sims 4 are the ruins in Windenburg and San Myshuno. And then he also said, and several of the worlds that we're working on, or something to that effect. So like, I mean, they've said before that they have 3 years of content planned for The Sims 4. So we're gonna get more content for The Sims 4 for quite some time, which is really good news for me personally. Like, I mean, as much as I think a lot of people are like, when they think like about the bad parts of The Sims 4, I think they still think back to the original bare bones base game when the game launched. But here's the thing. So there's also been kind of like this suspicion in the past week because of job postings that have been made on the EA website that they're hiring people to work on The Sims 5 now as well, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Like, this has been EA's or Maxis's plan all along. They always do like a few years of a game and then they start working on the next one and so on and so forth. Like, it's just how things work. But here's my thought. So the Sims 5 base game is, if that is what is actually going to be developed from this job posting thing, it's going to be pretty bare. This drives me crazy because this happened when The Sims 4 first came out. People are like, well, why don't we have weather? And why don't we have this? And like, to be fair, The Sims 4 at launch definitely had stuff missing. Like, no toddlers. We didn't have ghosts. Like, what? Why would they have left that? I mean, and that was another thing in the tweet from SimGuru Grant, is that one of the things, like, because somebody asked about, like, how babies are objects in The Sims 4, which I really don't like that either. But basically, he sort of alluded to the fact that the reason why babies are objects and why we didn't have toddlers at launch is because they had a deadline they had to stick to, and they just didn't have the time. So here's my concern, is that, so say we get The Sims 5, it's probably going to be just as bare bones as any of the previous Sims games, just base game, has been in the past. Like, we're not going to get this magical game that suddenly has all of the extra add-ons like pets and weather, and like, that's never going to happen in like a base game launch. But people, every time we have a new iteration of The Sims coming out, people always make that assumption, like, well, why can't we have this? Because it costs time and money to do these things. Like, it just doesn't magically happen overnight. Like, people have to stick to a budget and spend their resources of their time and their money on specific things in order for what they need to happen. And then extra things can be placed on top of that. Now, to be fair, again, I disagree with the whole not having pools or toddlers or ghosts or baby objects or cars. Like, there are definitely a lot of things that I think they should have done differently with The Sims 4. But then there are also a lot of people where I see things and I'm like, you guys are asking an awful lot. Like, so I don't know. I'm pretty content with The Sims 4 and staying in development for 3 more years. And, you know, in 3 more years' time, maybe they'll have a really awesome Sims 5 base game. Maybe not. Who knows? We actually don't even know that that's what they're working on. That's never actually been confirmed. So, you know, I'm pretty okay with how things are. You know, like, because in all honesty, I know that there's a lot of bugs that happen in The Sims 4, but I haven't had, at this point in the game, so we're 4 years into the game, 4 years into The Sims 3, that would have been like the summer of 2013. So, like, Island Paradise had just come out, and I think Into the Future was announced and was going to be coming out soon. At that point in The Sims 3, there were so many issues with that game. Like, that's a game that was very unstable. It required mods just to run. I mean, like, yeah, the content was really good, but they didn't have a great foundation. And I know that that's like a buzzword or whatever, but like, I think that we can survive 3 more years of The Sims 4 and still be okay. And with The Sims 3, I don't know that we would have been able to do that. So I'm pretty content with how things are going. So anyways, so this is the Country Charmer. It's currently available on the Sims 4 gallery. You can get to it either through the link in the description box below this video, or you can search for it on the gallery using the hashtag MrsTomato1018 or through my username, which is MrsTomato1018. Just make sure you change the filters on the side from currently popular to newest, so you actually see everything on the gallery, or so I hope. So anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do so down below. I put up a new video every single day, Monday through Friday. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!